This week's Torah portion is called Beshalach. Last week, we ended with the death of the firstborn. It was the 10th of the 10 plagues. The Jews are leaving Egypt. They're leaving behind their servitude. They're leaving behind slavery, and they're going to be free from all of that oppression. They go into the desert, and as we know, Pharaoh has a change of heart, and he chases after them. He takes his chariots and all of his armies, and they chase after the Jewish people. And we have the episode in this week's Torah portion where the Jews reach the Reed Sea. Here they are. They have the sea in front of them, and they have Pharaoh and the armies coming from behind them, and they're fearful. Now what do we do? We're between a rock and a hard place, and they cry out to God, and God says, don't cry out to me. You have to move forward. And one brave soul, his name is Nachshon ben Aminadav, he steps into the Reed Sea. He steps in, and the seas, it goes in and in and in, and the waters get higher and higher and higher, and the water gets up to his nostrils, we read in the Medrash. And then at that point, the seas split, and there's dry land, and the Jewish people are escaping the Egyptians on dry land. They go through the Reed Sea. Actually, they go around the Reed Sea. They come back on the same bank that they went in. It's not actually a straight trajectory. They go around, but they go. They're being chased by the Egyptians, and as we all know, the seas come down and drown the Egyptians, and the Jews are saved. And in that moment where they're saved, there is a mass revelation of God. God pulls back the veil that separates God from the universe, from us, and there is a knowledge of God that has been unparalleled up to this point. And the people have this mass revelation, and they're literally looking up and saying, this is my God. They're literally pointing at God and saying, this is my God. It's the revelation that happened to the Jewish people at this moment is apparently a revelation that was greater than the prophet Ezekiel had when he saw the divine chariot, whatever that means. But what we understand is that people had an experience of God which was so intense and so real that they could literally point and say, this is my God. And their souls were so filled with joy, and the knowledge was so real, and everything was so clear that they start to sing. Singing as an expression of the soul. The soul expresses itself in song. And what's miraculous also is that they all sang the same song. And it's a song called Az Yashir. It's the song that Moses led the Jews in. As the Egyptians are drowning, we're so happy to be saved. Egypt is now behind us. We are not scared of the Egyptians anymore. We're free people. We have a oneness with the universe. We have oneness with God. There's nothing else. This clarity, this joy, this gratitude, this experience was so huge that the people sang, and they all sang the same song because we're all one soul. And that singing is an interesting evolution. We understand that when the Jews were in Egypt, they were silent. They were so oppressed. They were so burdened with the work, and it was so tiring for them that they couldn't even cry. They were so burdened. And then slowly, as Moses comes and Aaron comes to Pharaoh to plea for the Jewish people to be released, the people start to moan. They start to groan. They evolve in their capacity to use their voice. They go from silence to moaning and groaning to crying. And then in this week's Torah portion, they reach that pinnacle of expression, which is song. We also have an understanding that the whole world is singing, that there's a symphony of the universe. There's a Perek Shira, there's a book which describes the whole of the universe singing, the mountains and the rivers and all the waters and all the birds and all the animals and everything in the whole world has a song that is singing all the time. We're not tuned into it, so we can't hear it, but there's a song. And every day there is a voice of God coming into the world that we also can't hear because we're shrouded in barriers that prevent us from hearing it. But on that day when the Jews experience the revelation of God, where the seas come in on the Egyptians, there's the splitting of the sea that brings the Jews into this dry land. They're free to go into the desert to have this one relationship with God. They sing. And what's really lovely, we read about the song and the dance of Miriam and the women, that the women also sing. They sing they dance, they have timbrels and they have drums, which they brought with them when they were coming out of Egypt. They thought, they knew that one day they're going to have a day when they're going to sing and they're going to dance and they're going to be so filled with joy. And they brought the timbrels, they brought the drums with them for that moment where they would, in the future, whenever that would be, they would need them, because they knew that in the future there would be this day of joy and this joy of happiness. So they brought the drums and the timbrels with them. And now they're using them and they're singing and they're dancing in circles. This is our Jewish way of dancing. We dance in a circle. We don't dance in a line. A line has a leader. We are circle dancing because we're all equal. There's no one who is closer to the circle than anyone, to the middle of this circle than anyone else. We're equal. We're dancing around each other because we're all part of the oneness and we're all this one soul. So the Jewish women, led by Miriam, are singing and they're dancing in a circle with their timbrels and their drums. So they brought those out with them in anticipation of this moment. And I think one other point that I want to bring out is that as Yashir, the word for when you sing, when we will sing, is a hint to the future. There will be a time where we will sing. There will be a time in the future where there will be the 10th song. We have 9 songs in our Torah, and the 10th is yet to be. There will be a 10th song that we can anticipate in our days. There will be a time like when the Egyptians came out of Egypt. They didn't know where they were going, but they had faith and they were following God into the wilderness. They had the experience of coming up against the Reed Sea and they were fearful, and God said, move forward. Nachshon ben Amminadab goes into the water. They split because they did something, moved into that space. So too we must keep moving when things seem dark and things seem like there's going to be nothing that's going to save us. The sea split in a moment. It split in a blink of an eye. And that's the teaching that we take with us into the future, that in the future we will have a time where we will sing. Just like the Israelites had a moment of clarity where they saw God and they could point and say, this is my God, we too will have that experience in the future. That's what this teaching is teaching us, that in the future we will sing like the Israelites did. And maybe we'll have our timbrels with us. We'll bring our timbrels with us because we, in this moment, in the dark moments, anticipate there will be a future when we will sing, when there will be clarity, when we will see the oneness of the universe and feel part of that and feel that connection with God that the Jews felt at that time. We will have that too. And we're not at that point yet. We're at the preceding point, but that is what our Jewish teachings, traditional Jewish teachings teaches us, is that there will be a time in the future where we will sing just like the Israelites did in that moment in the Reed Sea. It's what we learn about here. So we sing Az Yashir, we sing this song every day in our prayer service. Every morning we say this song. And then we move into the service that talks about the Shema, which is a proclamation of the oneness of God. So on some level, we have to recognize that there's a God, recognize that there's a oneness that we experienced once before, and we experienced it again at Mount Sinai, which we'll read about next week. And we will have that again. And then we proclaim Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, that God is one. So we go through the cycle of what the Jews experienced in the Torah back in the days of coming out of Egypt to understand what our experience is now. It's not past tense, it's gone, thank you very much, it's gone behind us. It's something we take with us into our days and project it forward because we're part of the same story. And just as the Jews came out of Egypt and had this revelation after the redemption, so too will we. And there will be, we are taught, and we have hope that there will be a time where we will sing and dance and have timbrels and be filled with clarity and filled with joy and filled with oneness and filled with an understanding that there's nothing other than God and that we are part of that oneness. And that's the That's the hope that this Torah portion brings us for our lives, that we will one day experience that same joy and clarity that the Jews did when they sang this song of Az Yashir, and when they danced with Miriam. The women danced with Miriam in circles. And we continue to dance in circles. We continue to recognize the equality of all people. We continue to recognize the intrinsic, infinite holiness of each soul that is part of who we are, and that's we're all part of the same soul. So I bless us that we continue our journeys through life with hope for the future, with an understanding that there will be a day of joy and clarity and love and connection and gratitude, like that which was experienced by the Israelites, that we will have that too one day in the future.